Hi, my name is Jim Gibson. Thank you for joining me today on my channel. And this channel is all about politics, in particular K-12 politics. And if you watch any of my other videos, you know my background. But it's the thing that's most significant to you when you're listening to this video is I spent over 20 years as a board member, what they call a trustee, on Vista Unified School District in California. A nice sized district. When I first started, it was 28,000 students. I don't know how many are there today. I did not run after 20 years, so I have not been on the board for a couple years. But I thought I'd tell you some of these stories that may be of interest to you as a parent or as a taxpayer. And one of them is, and by the way, I already did a video on the achievement gap. Today I'm going to talk about the achievement gap, how the achievement gap is narrowed, but they do it the wrong way. They do it by penalizing those individuals who are higher in the achievement gap, not bringing up those individuals who are struggling, things like that. And they're afraid of the achievement gap. I don't know why. Some kids excel, and they should be complimented and they should be supported when they excel. And others don't. I was one of those that did not excel in high school, basically because I didn't know how to read. Yeah, that's true. 10th grade, I did not know how to read, and it dawned on me that I wanted to read. And I thought to myself, the only way I'm ever going to learn how to read is to teach myself. And so I got myself a very simple book. Actually, it was the New Testament. I wanted to read the New Testament. And it was written in probably 4th grade language, and I couldn't read it. So I was an illiterate at that point. But what I did was, I took that, I would read what I can. I knew, and, if, but, and I knew some words, but not very many. So when I came across a word that I didn't know, what I would do is I would go to an adult and I would say, what is this word? And I started learning how to pronounce things phonetically. And 2 years later I went to college. Boy, that was a struggle, I tell you that. And I'm going to do a video on that a little later. But 2 years later I went to college, and I passed college and got a bachelor's degree. So today I want to talk about the achievement gap, but in particular I want to talk about another school. Last time I talked about Lincoln Middle School, how that school was completely self-sufficient. It did not cost the taxpayers a penny more what the teachers were doing. They were taking the super succeeders, and they were giving them rigor and hard work. And then the other teachers volunteered to take those who were struggling and do everything they can to do intervention, make sure they knew how to read, help them with things. But there's some students that just love that rigor, that just want to learn, they're hungry for it. And the teachers union shut it down along with the other 4 people on the board who were there based on the teachers union support. Remember, the teachers union do not support anyone that isn't going to vote with them 100% of the time, and they tell them how to vote. So today I'm going to talk about another school that sadly say is not around anymore. So that last program, it's not around anymore. They did away with it. It was unbelievable. This school, they could not convince the teachers to stop doing what they were doing, so they just closed down the school. Just period, just like that, closed down the school. 4-1. I voted to keep it open, but they closed down. Anyway, the sad story about Olive Elementary School. When I first got on the board, it had a 17% literacy rate. It was the worst in our district. It was horrible. Not worse by much, but it was horrible. So I remember I talked to the superintendent. I was there for a couple months already, maybe even a year, and I realized this is 17%. I saw the principal. Principal wasn't that great. She was happy with the 17%. That principal. I'm going to talk about a fantastic principal that is no longer in our district. But I talked to the principal, and they were kind of like, what time is it? And it's time for me to go and stuff like that. And why do you want to talk more? But to make a long story short, I went to the superintendent, the highest person in the district. And by the way, when you're a trustee, if you got 3 votes, you control the district. And I had 1 vote. So he wasn't that concerned about me. He knew the other 4 were supported by the teachers union, and they weren't going to fire him because he was their boy. And that's the way it is in public education. So I went to him and I said, did you notice Olive Middle School has a 17% literacy rate? And he said, yeah, I noticed that. And I know he's kind of hurry, he kind of like wanted to move on. And I said, what are you going to do about that? And he said, I don't know. That's just the way those kids are. And I said, no, that's unacceptable. And I noticed he was kind of packing up and in a hurry and everything else. And I said, hey, you better hurry up because you don't have enough time to get a whole golf game in. And I know you're in a hurry because that's where you go every day. You take off and golf. Gee, thank you. It doesn't bother you at all there, Superintendent, that you have a school, it's a 17% literacy rate? And apparently not. But that's Olive Middle School. So what happened was we got a good principal in there. She was fantastic. And you know something? We had really good teachers. I think she actually recruited them through the district. And these teachers and this principal got together, and that elementary school became the second most improved elementary school in the state of California. The second most improved in the state of California. Those kids were learning way above 50% literacy rate within, I would say, a year and a half, 2 years. And it was great. The parents loved it. The kids loved to come to that school. They were learning how to read in English. They were learning how to write. They were learning the other subjects, and they were doing fantastic. This is what you would call a successful elementary school on its way to more success. Excuse me. Yeah, but no good thing goes unpunished when it comes to the teachers union. And so I noticed there were some rumblings about this school. I don't know why. What are you going to complain about? What in the world are you going to complain about when a school is like this? This is a great school. This is the school I want my kids to go to. But there was some grumbling. It's just not fair. And they use that word fair. I mean, who has the definition of that fair idea? That is like really bizarre. How is that not fair to the rest of the district that these kids are learning at a higher level now? The worst elementary school in the district is now close to, if not better than, the best elementary school in the district. That should have been celebrated. That should have been fantastic, man. That's a great school. That's the school I want my kids to go to. No, that's not according to the union. And I knew the other four was in lockstep because they kept on bringing it up. And finally, they came up with an action item. Now, action items is what you have to vote on. I heard them complaining for months before that about the Olive Middle School. And so I said, okay, the action item is going to be next month. Why are you closing this school down? And he said, because it costs a lot of money to run that school. Well, it doesn't cost per student any more than it does any other student at any other school in our district. It's all the same. But you're going to close down? What are you going to do with those kids? Well, we're going to move them into a middle school. And I said, isn't that going to overcrowd that middle school? Isn't it going to be difficult to find classrooms? And they said, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But we're going to move them into that school, and we're going to close it down because we're going to save money. And I said, what money are you going to save? What money? Tell me. You still have the building. You still have to provide electricity. You still have to water the sprinklers. You're still going to pay the same amount of teachers that are in one school move to another school. You're still going to have to pay the principal moving to the other school. You're still going to need books. You're still going to need supplies. You're still going to need all those things. So tell me, where are you going to save money? And they said, well, yeah, we're going to save money. No, you're just doing what the teachers union is demanding you to do. You're not going to save any money. In fact, it cost them a couple $1 million more because they had to rebuild the playground for the elementary school kids. And they were all packed in like sardines, where 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away is a perfectly good school in good condition that they are happy to be in, and the elementary school kids are being protected. At elementary school level, and everyone was happy at the school. The employees were happy. The parents were happy. The students were succeeding, but they closed it down. So There is no good, successful deed in public education in California that doesn't get smashed, doesn't get put down. And if you're not part of the public education, maybe you don't realize it. Maybe you don't know that your tax money is being wasted like that. You know, it's kind of interesting, in talking about all this, that I did some lookup here, and this is a City Journal, it's called, and it's an article by Larry Sand. Now, I know Larry Sand is a good guy. He does a lot of really good research. Former teacher, does a lot of good research. But he says in his, and he backs it up with footnotes and all, and you can read it for yourself. Let me see, it's April 7th, 2022. And this is what he says, quote, in fact, 23.1% of Californians over the age of 15 cannot even read this sentence. That's 23.1% of people, your neighbors in the neighborhood and all, the ones that have gone through public education that's been controlled by a labor union. 23.1% cannot even read that sentence. I remember that's where I was before I taught myself how to read. I remember my dad held up the papers one time. You know, remember papers? Oh, I guess you got to be older than 30. Held up the newspaper, and he asked me, and it had writing on there, and he said, I bet you can't even read that title of that article. And I went, oh, yeah. And he went, yeah, I thought so. But my parents trusted the public school system, that they would fulfill their promise, the promise of educating their son, which they did not. I became a self-educator after that. You know, I picked up books, I've learned things from books, I read books, I read a lot of books, a lot of technical books, by the way, because reading opens up the future. If you know how to read, you're no longer dependent on teachers, you're no longer dependent on other people. You can read for yourself. So, at any rate, I'll include the link to this in the description, and you can check it out yourself. He has a lot of links. You know, he follows the facts. Facts are a wonderful thing. Anyway, to make a long story short, that's what happened to Olive Middle School. Right now, it just sits pretty much empty. It has some sort of organization there that I remember talking to the manager of that school district organization, and I forget what. I think it might have been adult ed now. And I said, what's wrong with the building you're in right now? And he said, nothing. Nothing is wrong with the building, but they want me to move to this one. So they succeeded in that, a 4-1 vote. Parents came out, they cried. They demanded the school stay open. We did not save money. It cost us more money. We put kids into another school like sardines. The superintendent got to go golfing. Everyone was happy. You know, one last thing, I remember the teachers coming to me before the board meeting and crying in my office. I owned a business at that time, I had a big conference room. And they came in and they begged me to help them. And I said, I'll do everything I can to help you. These are great teachers. They were fantastic. They were going the extra mile. They were spending extra time there and all. And they told me about the story. They said, you know, the president of the union comes in right in the middle of class and starts yelling at us in front of the students. And I remember that one teacher said, and the principal was there also, and the principal said, I told her she's never to be on my campus again without my permission. But they were crying that these kids that they loved and they loved to teach were no longer going to be their kids. They dispersed these teachers throughout the district because we don't want them to be successful anymore. They were putting in extra time, things like that. That wasn't allowed according to the contract. You know, a teacher's contract goes down to the minute. How many minutes you can teach each day, and they negotiate that. And it's often the very minimum that the state allows. So you're not seeing these teachers feel comfortable with spending time with on a regular basis with students after their minutes is done, because they no doubt will end up with the union knocking on their door, and not in a good place, because they got to live at that place, and the union dislikes them. They got to live with that. But at any rate, just want to let you know that accountability is pretty important, and that's one of the things I'm running for. A is accountability. B is a focus on basics, math, science, reading, spelling, even technology. Focus on that. Doesn't mean you can't do other things, but focus on that. That's what the focus needs to be. And of course, C is commitment to parents and taxpayers. I was the only one on that board that was committed to those parents, and you as a taxpayer. You deserve better. And as parents, you deserve better. Thank you for watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. If you subscribe, the algorithm sends more of these videos to more people to test. So thank you for watching. Tell your friends about these videos. Tell your friends I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Boy, that's a long title, but please tell your neighbors and your friends. And again, my name is Jim Gibson. Thank you for watching my videos. I do appreciate it. Hope you're having a wonderful day.